And just like they're talking about criminal charges in Goldman, they're not going to bring criminal charges. And even if they do, it's to give them some sort of a suspended sentence and allow them to pay a fine or something. The whole thing is a song and dance.
I really thought it was really so revealing when Warren Buffett and his associate came out defending Goldman Sachs and their immoral practice and saying, well, just because something is unethical doesn't mean it's illegal. That was, of course, what they were selling products, telling people how good they were, and then actually investing against them, gambling that these products they were selling to the suckers were going to collapse, which of course they did. And Warren Buffett says that's perfectly all right. Just because it's unethical doesn't mean it's illegal.
He's a disgusting creature.
Well,
those of you that didn't know, about 2 months ago, his firm, Berkshire Hathaway, got caught in defrauding through their financial statements for $300 million, and they paid a $100 million fine. And of course, they announce it, and bingo, it disappears. So nobody will see it because Warren is dragged out every day to tell you what's good about America and all the other illuminists that he belongs with. And he's lived on inside information, just like his father did. And his fortune was arranged for him by the Brotherhood of Darkness, just like it was for Kissinger and Zbigniew Brzezinski and George Soros and so on and so forth. And when they die, all of this money passes back to all of the other illuminists so that they can use it in the things that they want and have to do.
Well, if you're out there in the listening audience, you have a question or comment, our telephone number is 1-888-24-LIBERTY. 1-888-24-LIBERTY or 464-8295. If you have a question or comment, well, we'd love to let you talk to Bob and about what's going on here. Well, how are the gold stocks, the silver stocks doing? Are they doing fairly well, or are they suddenly sitting on the sidelines with this run-up?
Well, they moved up about 15% over the last couple of weeks, and they kind of been resting the last couple of business days, waiting for a further forward movement. Gold closed at 1182.70 today, and I think the former high was about 1220. So what do we got, $33 to go? That's doable by the end of the week. And so I think that can happen. Is it going to break out? In all probability. Again, people are buying because they don't want to be in other assets. And people who have studied history, and there's very few of us who have lived history from the 1930s that are left, they realize that all is not well everywhere. And so a lot of people are going into those gold and silver-related assets, and they're going to continue to do so in growing numbers. And all of a sudden you're going to wake up one day and gold's going to be $7,000 to $7,500 an ounce. And then it could go higher than that.
Yes, I heard Peter Schiff today saying that he thought the gold and the stock market would cross, that Dow would get down to 7,000 and gold would go up to 7,000 an ounce. And certainly he was on a national television program. People are beginning to, I think, to heed his words and your words and the words of other people who studied this, to realize, of course, that the bond market is a trap at the present time with inflation coming and interest rates rising. When interest rates rise, bond prices drop. But if you're invested in bonds, as so many people are, well, you can certainly lose your shirt. Would that be a fair estimate, Bob?
It sure can. I mean, I think it's very plausible that over the next year or so, maybe even by the end of the year, that the 10-year Treasury could yield 5%. That would add about $622 billion at the present time to the budget deficit, which in turn would be devastating. It'll be about $1.8 trillion this year. This would throw it over $2 trillion. And I think interest rates are going to go there.
Well, when they do, of course, the people who are invested in bonds, and there's about $80 trillion in bonds out there, and an awful lot of them are going to lose their shirts. We'll be back in just a moment with Bob Chapman. Welcome your calls, 1-888-24-LIBERTY, 464-8295. Well, this is Dr. Stan. Our guest, of course, is Bob Chapman. And our telephone number, 1-888-24-LIBERTY, 1-888-24-LIBERTY, or 464-8295. And Bob simply has been talking about the oil. Down there, certainly off the coast of Louisiana, saying, really, we don't know what it is. There's a lot of disinformation going out there, and until we have some positive information one way or the other, simply ignore most of what you're hearing. Well, we've got Dave calling, and hey, Dave, you're from Central New York?
Yes, Dr. Stan.
Okay, fine. We're up around Rochester?
Well, between Albany and Syracuse.
All right.
In Herkimer.
All right, very good. You're listening on shortwave internet or radio station?
Well, shortwave's off right now. I'm listening on my cell phone.
Okay, fine. And incidentally, anybody out there who wants to listen to our programs, our Genesis programs, our afternoon programs, the telephone number is 1-760-LOW-SO11. That's the number to call. That's how I remember it. 760-LOW-SO11. Go ahead, Dave. Do you have a question or comment?
Yes, I do, for Bob. My question is, when the figure of gold is around 7 or 1,000 plus, what would be the soonest that could take place, and what conditions domestically and worldwide would take place to cause that to be?
Well, you're talking about gold falling back?
No, going forward. I mean,
he's saying what would cause it to go to $7,000 an ounce?
First of all, if you take official inflation since the top of the gold and silver market in 1980, you'll find that official inflation is approximately $2,400 an ounce. So gold has been suppressed to the degree that it should be selling at double what it is right now on an official basis. Real inflation since that time, which our government doesn't admit to, would have gold somewhere approximately between $7,100 and $7,500 an ounce. So you don't have to go any further than that if you take that viewpoint that to make up for inflation, that's where it has to go. And historically, it's done that. Now, that's based on inflation. The more powerful side of gold is deflation. And sometimes during a deflationary atmosphere, what happens is that gold just stays the same. And all the other assets drop 65 to 95%. So if you're in gold or gold shares or coins, then you do pretty good, and the same is with silver. If you have a really, really bad depression, like we had in 1871 to 75, in 1929 to who knows where because the war interrupted it, then you're looking at a doubling of gold during those years. And so the gold goal under deflation is even more powerful and more fundamental than it is under inflation. And most people don't know that. And most people just don't read history. It's just like if you want to find out what your government's doing, just find real history books about the late 1920s, 1930s, and 1940s in Europe, and you'll find out what happened with National Socialism in Italy and Germany, and you'll see exactly what's going on in America today. And so history tells us that the worst possible case for gold is a doubling, and probably the same for silver. The best possible case at the moment is 71 to 7,500, and if inflation were to increase, I would expect those figures on an inflationary basis would increase as well.
Okay, does that answer your question, Dave?
Well, it does, but is that doable in the next 2 or 3 years? It wouldn't be a happy scenario for the economy and for people, but is that doable in what time frame?